You are standing inside a temple, not a church, a warehouse, mud brick walls, the smell of grain and sesame oil. Southern Iraq, 3000 BCE. Around you, thousands of clay tablets, stacked in rows, each one the size of your palm, each one covered in wedge-shaped marks. A priest moves past you. He presses a reed stylus into soft clay. He's recording something. Barley, oil, beer. He's recording what you owe and what you're owed. This is a credit system. It has been running for over a century. Nobody uses coins. There are no coins. Nobody is bartering either. No one is swapping chickens for sandals in the marketplace. That's not how this economy works. The clay tablet tracking your debt, that is the money. It always was. And here's the thing that should unsettle you. Everything you were taught about how money began, it's wrong. Not slightly wrong. Not missing some nuance. The foundational story, the one Adam Smith told in 1776, was a thought experiment dressed up as history. And the real story, what the clay tablets, the coins, the paper notes, and the blockchain all share in common, is far stranger. Money is not a thing. It's a technology, an idea encoded in an object. And humans have reinvented it at least 5 times. Each time, from a completely different starting point. Each time, arriving at the same core idea, a shared record of who owes what to whom. Think about that. Mesopotamian priests, Lydian kings, Song dynasty merchants, Dutch bankers, and an anonymous programmer named Satoshi Nakamoto, all solving the same problem. So how did humans actually invent money? Not the myth, the real story. Starting 5,000 years before the first coin. Let's go back to that temple in Uruk and start with what we actually know. The year is roughly 3100 BCE. Uruk, in what is now southern Iraq, is the largest city on Earth. Population, maybe 50,000 people. The temple doesn't just run religious ceremonies, it runs the economy. It receives surplus grain from thousands of farmers. It pays workers, craftspeople, soldiers. But how do you track all of that? Grain comes in from hundreds of farms. Beer goes out to thousands of workers. How do you keep score? The answer started long before writing. Around 8000 BCE, Mesopotamian accountants were using small clay tokens, spheres, cones, discs. Each shape meant something specific. A sphere meant 1 jar of oil. A cone meant 1 small measure of grain. They'd seal these tokens inside clay envelopes called boule. The envelope was the contract. This system ran for 5,000 years before writing existed. The tokens weren't symbolic. They were the record. They were the debt itself. Then, around 3100 BCE, something shifted. Someone had the idea to press the token shapes into the outside of the envelope before sealing it, an impression of the contents. You didn't need to break the envelope to check the contents anymore. The marks on the outside told you everything. The tokens inside became redundant. Writing had just been invented. The world's first writing system was not invented to record poems, or laws, or prayers. It was invented to track grain and beer debts. There's a specific tablet that proves this. British Museum reference BM 16730, known as the Jemdet Nasser tablet, dated to approximately 3100 BCE. It records beer rations, running accounts, who got how much. It is the oldest known financial ledger on Earth, and it is 5,100 years old. Now, here's where the textbook story collapses completely. Adam Smith, in The Wealth of Nations in 1776, told a story about money's origins that seemed logical, intuitive even. He said, primitive people bartered. Barter got awkward. So someone chose a commodity everyone wanted, maybe cattle or gold, and used it as a medium of exchange. Money was born. It's a beautiful story, clean, logical, and it has one fatal flaw. It never happened, anywhere, ever. In 2011, Anthropologist and author David Graeber published Debt, the First 5,000 Years. He spent years reviewing the anthropological record. His conclusion was precise and devastating. No society practicing systematic barter as a primary economic mode has ever been discovered, not one. In the entire archaeological and anthropological record, Graeber cited Cambridge anthropologist Caroline Humphrey, who had studied Mongolian and Siberian communities. Humphrey wrote in 1985, "No example of a barter economy, pure and simple, has ever been described, let alone the emergence from it of money." Adam Smith's barter story was a thought experiment. He imagined what primitive trade must have looked like. Then he wrote it down as if it were established fact. And for 235 years, economics textbooks repeated it. Think about what that means. The foundational origin story of the global economy was a myth, written by one man, based on no evidence, accepted for 2 centuries. So what did come first? Back in Uruk, the temple ran its credit system for centuries before any unit of account even existed. Then, around 3000 BCE, they standardized one. They called it the shekel, not a coin, not a piece of metal, a weight. Approximately 8.33 grams of barley, roughly 180 individual barley grains. Debts were recorded in shekels of barley or silver, not physically exchanged, recorded. The shekel was an accounting unit, a number in a ledger. Sound familiar? The temples at Uruk, and Nippur were functioning as something we'd recognize today. Central banks, receiving deposits, issuing credit, paying out in rations, running the whole thing on recorded obligations. And then someone extended credit. A farmer needed seed grain in spring. The temple lent it. The farmer repaid at harvest, with interest. Economist Michael Hudson at the University of Missouri has argued that interest itself was born from grain. A grain loan yielded roughly 3 times what you planted, so repaying 1/3 extra felt natural, biologically justified. By 2400 BCE, a clay tablet from the city of Nippur records the earliest known interest-bearing loan, silver, 20% annual interest. The borrower's name is recorded. The lender's name is recorded. The date is recorded. This is 1,800 years before the first coin. Sophisticated financial law, named parties, specified interest rates, in writing, on a tablet that survived 4.5 millennia. Then in 1754 BCE, King Hammurabi of Babylon codified the entire system into law, the Code of Hammurabi, one of the oldest legal documents on earth, and a huge chunk of it is about debt. Maximum interest rate, 33.3% per year on grain loans, 20% on silver loans, regulations on debt bondage, instructions for debt cancellation, a financial regulatory framework. In 1754 BCE, Babylonian kings actually canceled debts periodically. They called it anjurarum. Michael Hudson has documented at least 30 such royal debt cancellations in ancient Mesopotamia, a clean slate every few decades, by royal decree. And here's something that cuts even deeper. The word for debt and the word for sin are the same word in multiple ancient languages. In Aramaic, hoba; in German, schuld; in Sanskrit, rina. Debt has always been a moral concept, not just an economic one. The feeling that you owe something, that you are somehow deficient until you repay. That anxiety is ancient, encoded in language itself. So for 2,500 years, the ancient world ran on credit and clay tablets. No coins, no metal currency, just recorded obligations. Then, around 600 BCE, something new appeared in a river. The Pactolus River, western Turkey, modern-day Sart. In ancient times, Sardis, capital of Lydia. The river carried something unusual in its sediment, a natural alloy of gold and silver called electrum. The Lydians didn't need to mine it or smelt it. They just picked it up from the riverbed. That geological accident is why Lydia, not Mesopotamia, not Egypt, not China, invented coinage. The Greeks later told a story about this river. They said, King Midas washed off his golden touch here. The river ran gold ever after. That's mythology, but the geology is real. Around 610 to 600 BCE, under King Alyattes of Lydia, someone had an idea. Take a lump of electrum from the river, flatten it, stamp a royal lion's head into it, declare it has a fixed value. The coin was born. Archaeologists excavating the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus in the 1880s found 93 of these first coins buried in the foundation deposit, dating to around 600 BCE. The oldest coin hoard on Earth. The stater, the standard Lydian coin, weighed 8.1 grams. The trite, 1/3 of a stater, weighed 2.7 grams. Henry Kim, numismatist at Oxford's Ashmolean Museum, noticed something significant about that weight in 2001. The trite, that 2.7-gram coin, corresponds almost exactly to a Greek soldier's daily wage. Kim proposed that the first coins weren't minted for trade. They were minted to pay mercenary soldiers. Think about that. Money wasn't invented to make shopping easier. It was invented to fund armies. The first coin was a paycheck, a military paycheck. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus, writing around 440 BCE, agreed. He credited the Lydians as the first men we know of to have coined gold and silver into currency and to have introduced retail trade. But the Lydian coin system had a problem. Electrum's gold content varied naturally. A coin from one batch might be 60% gold, another 45%. You couldn't trust the value without testing it. King Croesus of Lydia, who reigned from around 560 to 547 BCE, solved this. He minted the world's first bimetallic coinage, pure gold coins, pure silver coins, separate, standardized, reliable. Croesus became the richest man in the ancient world. His name entered the language as a synonym for wealth, and 13 years after minting his perfected coins, Persia conquered Lydia. But the coins survived the empire that made them. Within 50 years of Lydia's invention, the Greek city-states were minting their own coins. Athens minted its first silver tetradrachms around 550 to 530 BCE. The design, an owl, Athena's helmet, a symbol of wisdom and power. That owl design remained almost unchanged for over 400 years. Think about that. The US dollar has been redesigned multiple times in 250 years. The Athenian owl ran for 4 centuries without changing. The reason Athens could do that, the Laurion silver mines in southern Attica. In 483 BCE, they hit an unexpected vein of silver, a windfall. The city debated what to do with it. The politician Themistocles argued, "Don't distribute it as cash. Use it to build 200 warships." The Athenians agreed. 3 years later, those ships destroyed the Persian fleet at Salamis. A monetary decision saved Western civilization. Back in the Agora, the proliferation of city-state coins created a new profession, money changers. The Athenians called them trapezitae, from trapeza, the table, because they worked at a counting table. Archaeologists excavating the Athenian Agora from 1931 onward found a money changers hoard, 79 coins, 17 different city-states, deposited around 400 BCE, one man's working collection of the currencies he traded every day. Around 350 BCE, Aristotle thought hard about what money actually was. His answer in the Politics was precise and radical. Money has no intrinsic value. Its value comes from convention, from social agreement. Aristotle was anticipating modern monetary theory by 2,300 years. A gold coin is worth something because everyone agrees it is. The moment that agreement breaks down, it's just a disk of metal. Now, jump forward 1,400 years. Different continent, different civilization, but the exact same problem. How do you move large amounts of value without carrying it physically? Sichuan Province, China. Around 1000 CE. There's a problem specific to this region. Sichuan uses iron coins instead of copper or bronze, and iron coins are very, very heavy. How heavy? To buy a single bolt of silk, you needed approximately 130 pounds of iron coins. That's not inconvenient. That's physically impossible for routine commerce. So during the Tang Dynasty, from around 618 to 907 CE, Sichuan merchants began depositing their iron coins with trusted agents. The agent gave them a paper receipt. The receipt could be redeemed elsewhere. They called it fei qian, flying money. Then, around 995 to 1005 CE, 16 wealthy Sichuan merchants had an even bigger idea. They started issuing standardized paper notes, backed by iron coin deposits, exchangeable on demand, private paper currency. By 1023 CE, the Song dynasty government saw what was happening. They took over the system, the first government-backed paper currency, the jiaozi, complete with anti-counterfeiting measures, complex borders, multiple colors, serial numbers. The notes were printed on mulberry bark paper. They had a built-in expiration date, valid for 3 years, then exchanged for new notes, an early tool against hoarding. The Song government was running monetary policy. Then Kublai Khan came along, and he decided to take paper money to its logical extreme. In 1260 CE, he issued the Chao, paper notes backed by nothing, no gold, no silver, no iron coins, just his authority. And to make sure everyone accepted it, he made it illegal to refuse the Chao. He made it illegal to use gold, silver, or copper coins in transactions. The penalty for refusal was death. Marco Polo saw this system firsthand between 1275 and 1292 CE. He wrote, "And nobody, however important he may think himself, dares to refuse them on pain of death." He said, the Khan practiced alchemy, creating money from bark. Europeans who read his account thought he was lying. Money made from bark, backed by nothing but a decree? Impossible, absurd, fantasy. That is exactly how every dollar in your wallet works today. Ibn Battuta, the Moroccan scholar who visited China in the 1340s, confirmed it independently. He wrote that all foreign merchants were required to exchange their gold and silver for paper at the border, no exceptions. But the yuan system had a fatal flaw. When the government needed money, for wars, for palaces, for administration, they printed more Chao, then more, then more. By 1356, the Chao was effectively worthless. Prices had risen approximately tenfold since 1260. 96 years of printing without restraint. The Yuan dynasty collapsed in 1368. History's first documented hyperinflation had helped bring it down. Meanwhile, in Europe, a completely different innovation was quietly making money even more abstract. Not coins, not paper, something invisible, an entry in a ledger. The infrastructure that made this possible was double-entry bookkeeping, not invented in Amsterdam, codified in Florence, by a Franciscan friar and mathematician named Luca Pacioli in 1494. But Italian merchants had been using double-entry bookkeeping since the 13th century. The earliest surviving example, the ledger of Rinieri Fini and Brothers, a Florentine banking firm, dating to 1296 to 1305 CE. Double-entry bookkeeping sounds like accounting jargon, but it's a technology. Every transaction recorded twice, as a debit in one account, a credit in another. Errors are self-revealing. Money becomes manipulable at scale. In 1609, Amsterdam applied this technology to solve a specific problem. The city's merchants were dealing with over 800 different types of coins from across Europe, each with different weights, different compositions, different trustworthiness. The solution, the Bank of Amsterdam, the Wissel Bank, founded in 1609 in the Amsterdam Town Hall. Merchants deposited their chaotic coins. The bank credited them with a standardized account balance, bank money. The account balance was called the Banco Florin. You couldn't hold it in your hand. It existed only in the ledger. But it was more stable than any coin because it couldn't be clipped or debased. The Banco Florin actually traded at a premium over physical coin, 2 to 9% more valuable, because everyone trusted the ledger more than the metal. Imaginary money, more reliable than real money. But in 1790, investigators discovered something the Bank of Amsterdam had been hiding for decades. The supposedly 100% reserved coin deposits, they had been secretly lent out. The bank had been creating money it didn't actually have. Fractional reserve banking, the practice of lending out more than you hold. It was supposed to be illegal. The bank had been doing it anyway, for decades, because it worked. The bank closed in 1820. The practice it pioneered secretly became the foundation of every bank that followed. Around this same era, something happened in England that shows how strange money's history really is. For centuries, the British Exchequer had recorded tax obligations using wooden sticks. Tally sticks, a notched wooden stick split in two. The creditor kept one half, called the stock. The debtor kept the other, called the foil. The notches recorded the amount. If the two halves matched, the debt was proven. The British Exchequer used tally sticks from the 12th century to 1826. 600 years. They were ancient debt records. The government finally stopped using them and accumulated a huge stockpile. Then, in 1834, they decided to burn them. They fed the tally sticks into the furnaces beneath the Houses of Parliament. The fire got out of control. It spread through the flues. By morning, both Houses of Parliament had burned to the ground. David Graeber loved this story. The ancient form of money, the tally stick, the debt record, literally destroyed the building of modern government, as if history itself was making a point. Now let's skip forward to October 31st, 2008. A cryptography mailing list receives an email. Attached, a 9-page document. The author's name, Satoshi Nakamoto, a pseudonym. Nobody knows who this person is, to this day. The paper proposed a solution to the oldest problem in money. How do you prove a transaction happened without a trusted third party in the middle? No temple priest, no bank, no government, just math. The solution? A distributed ledger. Every transaction recorded on thousands of computers simultaneously. Nobody controls it. Nobody can alter it retroactively. The ledger is the trust. On May 22, 2010, a programmer named Laszlo Hanyecz made the first real-world Bitcoin transaction. He paid 10,000 Bitcoins for 2 Papa John's pizzas. Another user ordered the pizzas for him. At Bitcoin's peak value in 2021, those 10,000 Bitcoins were worth approximately $690 million. The most expensive pizzas in history. The commodity anchor for an abstract currency, echoing the grain-backed debt receipts of Uruk 5,000 years earlier. Think about the full arc of what just happened. The Yap Islanders in Micronesia had enormous limestone discs called raiyi, some weighing 4 metric tons. They never moved the stones. Ownership transferred by verbal acknowledgement. One famous raya stone sank in transit from Palau, 400 kilometers away. It's sitting on the ocean floor, and it is still used as currency, because everyone on Yap agrees it exists. Economist Milton Friedman pointed out in 1991 that this is exactly what the U.S. Federal Reserve did in 1932. France asked for its gold reserves converted from dollars. The Fed just relabeled existing gold bars in the vault. Didn't move them. France's gold, same vault. The Yap stone, the Federal Reserve vault, the Bitcoin blockchain, the Sumerian clay tablet, they are all the same thing. A shared record of who owns what. A social agreement encoded in a medium. Now, Graeber's argument was contested. Economist Robert Shiller and others pointed out that while the barter myth is wrong, early credit systems were not the benign accounting exercises Graeber described. Those first Mesopotamian debt records also recorded debt bondage. If you couldn't repay, you became the creditor's slave. Your children could be seized. The Code of Hammurabi tried to regulate this. It didn't eliminate it. Money is not neutral. Every version of it embeds a power structure. Who issues it? Who decides its value? Who gets credit? And who gets enslaved by debt? These were not abstract questions in ancient Babylon. They are not abstract questions today. Here is what the full 5,000-year story actually reveals. Money was never invented once. It was never discovered. It was constructed, repeatedly, as a solution to a coordination problem. How do large groups of strangers coordinate economic activity without physically meeting? That is the problem money solves. And every solution, from barley shekels to Bitcoin, encodes the same answer: a trusted record. The medium changes, clay to metal to paper to number. But the underlying technology, the shared agreement about what is owed, is identical in 3000 BCE and 2024 CE. Tonight, when you tap your card or phone to pay for something, you are using a system that is structurally identical to that Sumerian temple ledger from 3100 BCE. A number changes in a database somewhere. Nobody moves anything physical. A priest in Uruk updated a clay tablet. A bank server in Dublin updates a database entry. The technology is different. The concept is exactly the same. A record of obligation. That's all money ever was. Adam Smith said it came from barter. The clay tablets say it came from debt. The coins say it came from soldiers. The paper notes say it came from iron too heavy to carry. And the blockchain says it came from mistrust of every institution that came before. Every version of money tells you something about the society that made it, what it feared, what it valued, who it trusted, and who it didn't. Tomorrow morning, you will use money. You will not think about it. But somewhere in your wallet or your phone is a technology that took 5,000 years and at least a dozen civilizations to build. And it still runs on the oldest principle in economics. Someone has to believe it.